Welcome to a thankfully sunny Como for the last of, well, frankly, the last of the monuments of the season. 245 kilometres ahead of the riders at the top of the day. They're deep into the course already, and thankfully the clouds are clearing and the predicted 15 millimetres of rain seems to have all fallen at the top part of the day. There's no doubt about it. This is a very beautiful part of planet Earth we're going to play with today. Well, many have been there or thereabouts. Not many have done that. Well, it's a last chance for many for glory this season. Weather forecast, partly cloudy, temperature 16 Celsius. It's actually warmer than that at the finish line, I can tell you. Humidity 84%, chance of rain during the race 100%. And the weathermen were absolutely right. That's precisely what we got at the top of the day. Some rain. And this is our course leaving Bergamo, which was, of course, the finish to Lombardia last time of asking. Well, we're back to the lakes. Not to Lecco, but the other leg of Lake Como, Como town itself. But it's about the climbs, quite frankly. The Col Brianza, as well as plenty of others, including the much-feared Madonna di Salo, and, of course, the what is known as the Muro in the local area of Sormano. So the climbing isn't over once they've done those two ultimate tests, you might say. They turn out to be a penultimate brace. And in fact, if you look at the planimetry or altimetry right now, you'll see as well there's a couple of real kicks which are surely going to beg a breakaway. You've got to be brave if you're going to win into Como after 245 kilometres, especially with the weather conditions being as variable as they are. Sign on today in Bergamo. And it was a chance for everyone to reintroduce themselves to each other. In fact, this is, of course, Lakeside Como still. That's our finish line. That's where they'll be heading towards. 650 metres is the straight after the final turn. So sign on for a day of glory. Time to make amends for those missed opportunities throughout the season. Of course, those coming out of the Worlds may be in decent shape. Jet lag, of course, putting to one side. And so at the sign on today, it was plenty of warm weather gear, as you can see, that was to the fore. Barely a bare arm in sight as we spoke to the great, the good and, well, the hopeful.
Ladies and gentlemen, give them a warm send-off now as they get solo questo ragazzo per oggi. Eccolo qua, lui in salita ne sa un bel po'.
I don't know, and the final member of the team as they look for their numbers.
E gli ultimi atleti, il campione nazionale danese Christian Sorensen e poi
Dan Martin, okay, you're coming back from a separated shoulder. You had a good Milano-Torino. How are you for Lombardia?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. I mean, that's the main thing. But yeah, Milan-Torino surprised me. I mean, I was a lot better than I thought I was going to be. So yeah, Oh, we'll see. I mean, it's a really long race. It's a really hard race. So, yeah, Milan-Torino is one thing, but an extra hour and a half of racing is a different thing here. So, yeah, well, I'm here to enjoy the day. Now I've got number 1 on my back. I made it to the start line. You know, that's the positive, and we'll just see how far we can go in the race.
That said, you've been working hard. You've been at altitude, and those final 60 kilometres on paper really suit you.
Yeah, normally it's a perfect course for me. So yeah, hopefully we can just like kind of hide, and I don't think anybody's expecting me to really be there at the end. So yeah, we can maybe make a surprise or two.
We'll see you at the end then.
Hope so.
Vincenzo, sei il favorito, questo non c'è dubbio.
Well, he's starting off as favourite. He said, yeah, favourite's one thing, but doing the job is another. But, you know, we're all feeling good. We're in good shape. And, of course, it's the end of the season. But, of course, it's very difficult. And you've got to be very, very focused. But it's an insidious final, he says. But there's a lot of very, very strong riders out there, not just me, and it's a difficult course.
Philippe Gilbert, the final 60, 70 kilometres are different this year. Can you do well on this course?
Yeah, they are very, very hard. It's like up and down always, from 60k to go to the finish. And very quite hard climbs also, so we have to be like in front but also very strong.
Rarely are there so many favourites for Lombardia. What do? Do you wait? Do you ride your own race? Do you look at Valverde? Nibali has to go from a long way out. Lots of options.
Yeah, it's a lot of options, but you know, at the end of the season, the World Tour ranking is also playing a big role. The individual one and the team ones. So it's like sometimes you see guys chasing the order or teams chasing other teams, and then you just understand the reason the day after when you see the newspapers, you know.
So nervous starts at the top of the day. All looks very, very serious, not overly chatty, let's put it that way at the beginning. It is a long distance. It's also punishing climate this time of year in Italy. It gets very, very wet, and of course you can get extraordinarily chilled. It was a cold start, around about 14 to 16 Celsius. It's warmed up just a little bit, particularly towards the end of today's race where our commentary position sits. But it wasn't long before things got very, very lively at the top of the day. Reaching out for glory is what you have to do, especially if, of course, you are hoping to be something of a surprise by the time that the day is done. And it wasn't long before we drew a response as we headed out of Bergamo. And in fact, it was to get really quite busy. Canola from United Healthcare lighting the blue touch paper, Di Negri as well, showing a great interest for Nipovini Fantini. In fact, that pairing did manage to get themselves into a break. There was a tumble. Bongiorno of Bardiani went down. Stefan Dineffel of I Am Cycling. Orica Greenedge caught out as well. And United Healthcare got a man in the break. Maybe we're just resting on their laurels just a little bit. Took a while for Bongiorno to get himself up off the deck, but he did so and has remounted and continued. But how deep he'll get into the day is anybody's guess. We believe Simon Gerrans was actually caught up in this crash earlier on. He's constantly been dogged with ill fortune, unfortunately, for him. So yes, question is just getting back on and getting back in where you need to be, which is as far to the front as you can possibly get. So not a great start for many out there, but finally back on the bike. It was indeed Simon Gerrans to the side. Yet again, he must be wondering what on earth the cycling gods are doing to him. Anyway, there is a breakaway. It's 11 riders who are up the road and heading for, inexorably, Como. So joining our pictures live right now. We still have our breakaway up the road. Some bumps and bruises for many. Down a rough start to today for Simon Gerrans, one of those who many would have thought had a great chance today.
Yeah, it seems like one of those years which he's going to want to forget as quickly as he possibly can. 6th place at the World Championships just 1 week ago. pretty good performance given how the rest of his season has been, but it's just been one long year of getting injuries, trying to come back, trying to focus, and hitting the deck once again. That seems to be what's happened to him again today. He is up and running, he's back in the peloton, but certainly won't have done his morale any good today.
We're hooking up to Lake Como. You saw the beautiful, if slightly staggered picture there, heading to Bellagio, incidentally. Absolutely glorious part of the world. The promontory in Bellagio is a writer's sanctuary, and as our cameras look back towards it, the little mount there, you'll see a great big palace, and the Rothschilds, by invitation, you can actually go there if you are a writer of note, and spend some time in your little cloistered environment. They'll look after all the expenses. Malcolm Bradbury actually went there once. His wife apparently put on about 11 pounds in weight over the 3 or 4 weeks that they were there, because frankly the food is just so spectacular, and so are the views in this part of the world, Bellagio. As you look back, or indeed across to Verona, where the villas of the great and the good, and indeed some notorious are there, we won't name them, but across the way George Clooney as well has himself a little pad in this part of the world. I understand it's up for sale. Dan Lloyd so far hasn't admitted to being tempted, but we'll see how he goes today. 82.4 kilometres to go then, Dan. 245. It's kind of a rude distance at the end of what's been a very busy season for these riders, and there will be plenty of fatigue brought over back from the Worlds, won't there?
Yeah, mental and physical fatigue really are all parts of the racing at this time of the season. Everyone at the very beginning extremely motivated, lots of mental and physical energy in their bodies to use. At this point in the season, it does often just come down to who has got the biggest morale, the most motivation to try and do something. It's still a huge race. It's one of the 5 monuments that we talk about in terms of one-day racing. So starting off with Milan-San Remo back in March, then going on to the Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and then finishing with this Giro di Lombardia, as it's called here now. You know, and there are a lot of riders who are very up for this indeed. Vincenzo Nibali, for one. You've already mentioned Carlton. We saw an interview with him at the start of our programme. This season has not been a good one for the Italian national champion, despite defending that Italian championships back in June. He certainly hasn't performed as he would have expected and liked at the Grand Tours, and of course being ousted from the Vuelta after holding onto a team car basically just rubbed salt into the wound. So he's been performing pretty well recently at the Italian one-day races leading up to this grand finale, and he's the big favourite really for today, which is why his team Astana are riding on the front.
Here's your breakaway then, one of our super slow-mo shots. Dennis van Vinden is up here. A good time trialist, in fact, a solid part of the team time trial outfit for Lotto Jumbo in the yellow and black. We also have Marco Canola from United Healthcare. He was one of those that started the break. There he is in the blue and white. And in fact, we're with the breakaway live right now as you just come down Lakeside, heading towards Bellagio, as we mentioned earlier. Simon Geske of Giant Alpecin has carried his beard all the way up to the breakaway. CCC Sprandi Polkovici are also represented in this breakaway. Lampre Merida are here, as you can see. That is Jan Poulenc. Cesare Benedetti is here for Bora Aragon 18. Barbin is in the house for Bardiani, as well as Jerome Coppel, which is an interesting one, third in the individual time trial at the World Championships, the 29-year-old Frenchman. And time trialling is a great ability, especially at moments such as this, and especially if there's a lack of certainty in the pursuit. You can kind of be let off the leash, to be honest, and he's had some decent wins, Jerome Coppel, in his career from situations such as this. Oscar Gatto as well, the 30-year-old Italian, is also up and in the break, doesn't mind lumpy stuff, went well in Austria last year. Stefan Schumacher is the Sprandi Polkovici rider who has had a cloud over him in his career, as I'm sure you well know. Veteran now is the German, but he's almost reinvented himself, I think. And he's kind of an open book about his past, and for that I think we can be grateful and maybe just offer him up perhaps a modicum of at least forgiveness, but not, of course, forgetfulness as to why he had that cloud in the first place. Tenegri of Nippi Vini Fantini, the aforementioned Dennis van Vinden from Lotto Jumbo, as we've mentioned. Bussato is there from Southeast in their sort of silver grey. I think they like to call it steel, but basically it's grey. And that's your lot. 11 riders up the road and a pretty handy bunch, Dan.
Yeah, there's certainly no slouches, the riders who've made that 11-man breakaway. The maximum gap which they got was a little under 9 minutes, but that was some time ago. Now it's now down to the 6-minute mark roughly, and that's going to come down very quickly indeed now, because the riders in the peloton and indeed the breakaway are approaching the crunch part of today, and that is the last 70 k's or so. Starting off with the Madonna del Ghisallo, which is one of the most famous climbs really in this race. After that they've got the Muro, which you described a little bit earlier, Carlton. We'll go into that in much more detail as they come up towards it, but it is a beast of a climb over the last 2 kilometres, extremely steep, but coming as it does with 50 k's to go at the top, probably won't see too many attacks from the really big favourites today. Now we've got 2 more climbs in the last 21 kilometres, and that is where we are likely to see the big guns really going for it.
Have gone off, and it's interesting to see who's busy chasing on. And Philippe Gilbert looked extraordinarily lively down there a few moments ago, and he's actually trying to chase down the Ethics Quickstep boys. We said, Dan, that when a monument such as this comes at the end of the season, which carries such a lot of prestige, you naturally draw some very, very big names, but fatigue is a huge part of it. Those who managed to stay sane, I was going to say almost, I guess after a crazy season it'd have to be. Perhaps maddest of all, at least in terms of anger, which he generally tends to be able to direct into a purposeful push. We've seen him do it many, many times. Is Vincenzo Nibali, aggrieved, of course, to have been thrown off the Vuelta, which is a chance for him to very much retrieve what for him was sort of a broken season. And here you can see with Gilbert and some of Gilbert's cohorts, but Vincenzo Nibali with the Italian champions stripes across his back will be very keen that this doesn't go from within his grasp as well. He would have to go long if he was going to take it today. Not able to, I wouldn't have thought, duke it out with the sprinters if it does come to that at the end. So, but this is not falling into his battle plan at all, having a very strong breakaway pushing on, which doesn't include him.
Yeah, in some ways I agree with you. In other ways I think he will have hoped for a hard race today. If it's too easy, it's more likely that people would be able to follow his attack on the last climbs. But the fact that Ethics Quickstep have pushed on and put the teams behind on the back foot, they're having to go slightly harder perhaps than they would have done if they were only chasing the original breakaway group. And you can see the group has whittled down somewhat already as they reach the foot of this Ghisallo climb. Movistar now on the front. You can see in third place is the Spanish champion Valverde, one of the favourites for the race today. On his wheel, the former world champion Rui Costa. Then looks like Philippe Gilbert just behind that. Kruijswijk is the rider from Lotto NL Jumbo. So all of the big name riders coming up towards the front already. Some of them 50 seconds in front of that group, coming down very slightly. But I can tell you the gap to the original breakaway is now down to just 2.5 minutes. So the pace really has gone up a lot over the last 20 or 30 kilometres, and you might wonder why Ethics Quickstep have gone quite so soon, but the fact is that even if they do get caught from this position, their leaders, the likes of Kwiatkowski, maybe Zdenek Stybar as well, I'm not exactly sure who they'll be working for today, but even if they do get caught, the fact that they went on a it means that they might not have to go into the red quite as much as some of the riders who have to come up from behind and catch them up. So it could be almost an energy-saving exercise in some ways as well.
Fascinating. Sorry, we've got some sound issues, I'm afraid, here on site. Little bombs just gone off in our headphones. Yes, quite uncomfortable. 71.4 kilometres remaining then, and it looks like we've got some brave souls even within the breakaway.
Yeah, that looks like it's Canola there on the front from the United Healthcare team, and then Benedetti just on his wheel. I've also seen Jerome Coppel, who you mentioned earlier, Carlton, is finishing third at the World Individual Time Trial Championships on his own. I believe dropped off the breakaway completely, although I might be wrong on that. He might be somewhere in between. But it is splitting up. They will have heard on their race radios that things are heating up behind, and that they'd have to really kind of get a move on if they want to try and stay in front much longer in this race, particularly with the Somano climb coming up. They'll want to do their utmost to try and make sure that they get towards the top of that still slightly ahead, because as soon as you get caught, especially if it's in those last few slopes, the last couple of kilometres where it's extremely steep, then you're going to go straight out the back, having been in the breakaway all day.
Just looking at the chase and how it's assembling itself for the time being, and Essex Quickstep do seem extraordinarily lively. Behind them, there doesn't seem to be a great deal of urgency, and I wonder whether they're just trying to gauge the situation and see how hard Essex Quickstep are going to push on. I'm looking on one of our little sub monitors, and I'm just wondering whether the chase has been fully engaged just for the time being. What it's done, though, as far as the breakaway are concerned, the pictures you're looking at right now, means that our friends in the break have decided that this is too big an alliance to continue. And in fact, they are the sprightliest of them. This is Marco Canola from United Healthcare, 26 years of age. He won in a stage of the Giro last year, 2014, into Rivarolo, and was fifth in the GC in Dubai. And here we are. Kwiatkowski wants to have a little bit of fun right now. He's used his teammates, or potentially used them up, I suggest, and he's decided that this day might well be a long ranger.
Yeah, a slightly difficult one for these guys, really. Now, their teammates, at least at Ethics, have done a huge job on the front for them already, and now's the point, with 70k still to go, Tim Wellens and Kwiatkowski, who started as kind of outside favourites really at the start of the day, have to decide how much energy they want to use at this particular point in the race, because of course the other favourites are still sitting in the group behind, and although they're climbing, they will still be getting a drafting benefit and not having to put too much energy in. So Tim Wellens has decided that he's in this group, he's going to try and make the most of it, and he's pushing on there, drawing Kwiatkowski clear as well. It's a pretty strong group, really. And if we're looking at the big 5-star favourites for today, you have to put Vincenzo Nibali, who's sat in fifth place there, and fellow national champion Alejandro Valverde at the very top of the list. But if you go down behind that, there are a whole host of riders who could potentially, feel that they've got a great chance of winning today. Even last year's champion Daniel Martin of Cannondale-Gama, his last race in fact for that team, he is obviously just coming back from injury at the moment, having crashed out of the Vuelta a España with a separated shoulder. He competed on Thursday, I think it was, at the Milano-Torino, and actually came in the top 20, which I think he was quite pleased about. But he wants to try and go out from that team on a high, and he might be somebody else to be reckoned with again. Two riders on teams who aren't in the World Tour. They're at that level just below Pro Continental. They're in a breakaway which has got a couple of World Tour riders. There's 3 in the distance there. Simon Geschke, Van Winden, also there from Lotto NL Jumbo, and one other as well. See them on the front, staying clear of the main group at the moment. Time gaps for you. Well, Benedetti and Canola lead by 25 seconds from the rest of the breakaway. Further 14 back to Oscar Gatto, and then it's 2 minutes between our leaders and that group containing Kwiatkowski. Behind that, another minute now to the group of Vincenzo Nibali and Alejandro Valverde.
The main names, and of which we include, of course, Valverde and the aforementioned. They've got to be careful, because this is a pretty strong breakaway group that's forming up the road. You can see a couple of satellite riders as well, one from Astana and one from Trek Factory Racing. They're just trying to bridge over for the time being. In fact, it's one of the Essex Quickstep boys who was in the original push, I beg your pardon. So with 69.2 kilometres to go, there are some pretty handy names all over this mount, which we are taking on right now. Now, it is the Madonna di Ghisallo. We'll be at the top of it in still about 5 kilometres time. There is a dip which sort of lulls you into a false sense of security. So there'll be a downhill run to a place called Civena. Then we kick up again. It maxes at 12%, and then finally they will have a short descent. It's only 6 kilometres before they have to climb again down, and you can almost count the whole thing as one climb phased one into the other. 6 kilometres of descent, then 7.5 kilometres of absolute hell up the Muro.
Yeah, it's a brutal climb. We're going to describe it once we get towards the top of it. But after the descent off the Muro, which is a long one, it's over 10 kilometres in length, reasonably technical as well. You remember a couple of years ago some riders coming to grief, amongst them I think Philippe Gilbert, who I believe was defending champion at the time. But after that they've got a fairly long flat section before they get into the Civiglio, the penultimate climb of the day, which is where the riders are expecting the race winning move to go. But those 20 kilometres in my mind are going to be crucial. Given the severity of this climb and the one coming up, the Muro, teams aren't going to have strength in depth we don't think, still left for that 20-kilometre flat section, and that will make things quite hard to control, which could play into the hands of any breakaway of strong riders that does manage to prize itself clear, either on the climb itself or as Kwiatkowski and Wellens have done before then. It's going to be an interesting the way this plays out. A lot harder than last year's route, much more akin to the one from the previous year, where we saw Joaquin Rodriguez take the title for the second time, I think it was. News on Rodriguez himself, actually, not on this race today, was due to start, but training crash on Friday meant that he hurt his knee, and so Team Katusha's principal not at this race.
Myself, quite frankly, they both were separated as part of their career, and in fact Sky, I think, missed out big time on signing a pair of them because they only wanted one. I believe they only wanted Simon.
I think that was it, yeah, because Simon was part of the British Academy, and Adam went over to France to race with a team called CCA2.
And as a result, two very different characters have kind of emerged. Adam's a bit more of a prize fighter. You'd probably say that Simon is a bit smoother. But nonetheless, they are identical twins, and so as a result, they are, of course, they share exactly the same genetics, which shows you it's nurture as well as nature. And the pair of them, of course, well, the Aussies have got them. Orica Greenedge, those of you listening down under, yeah, you've bagged a real fantastic pair of prospects that, of course, are already delivering, which is great for you, and fantastic for what is a fantastic team as well. Orica Greenedge, they really they are a young team, but they are also, of course, now very much part of our consciousness because they've had such a level of success, well, straight out of the box, it seems. Right, now, time for boxing as well, I think you might say, as we start to head up towards, or at least our breakaway, there's Sormano, the Muro, the wall, and it gets very rude very early.
Yeah, just on the lower slopes of the wall now, in fact 500 metres into it. The wall comes in another 4.5 kilometres time, so just to remind you, this first section of the Sormano, 5.1 kilometres in length for an average gradient of 6.6%. It's after that things get tricky, to say the least. So 15.8% for the final 1.9 kilometres with a maximum gradient of 27%. There's your situation on the road then, on your screens in front of you. Our leaders just about to be caught by a trio. So we're going to have 5 guys shortly at the front of the race. 1 minute and 58 seconds behind are the group of Kwiatkowski, who've also caught up with the likes of Schumacher, Polanc and some of the other early breakaway riders. So things are starting to kind of skirmish around, really. Still 3 minutes and 6 seconds back to what is being described as the blue jersey bunch. I presume that is referring to Astana, but I can tell you, not just Astana on the front now. We've also got Trek Factory Racing. They've joined the chase behind this couple of groups that we have at the front of the race. Not sure exactly who they're going to be working for today, Trek Factory Racing. Probably Bauke Mollema, I would imagine, is their outright leader, but they've got the likes of Frank Schleck and Julian Arredondo as well, the Colombian rider, who are also not too much of a way of slouches when it comes to climbing.
Do you know, Frank Schleck, when he came and took a stage on the Vuelta, I almost felt myself, I was surprised at my own pleasure at seeing him go so well. There's such a great prospect, both Frank and Andy. You know, Andy has stepped off the bike. He's got himself a bicycle shop these days, which he runs, quite an enormous one apparently, which is very successful. So I wish him the best. Frank, there's been a few mists surrounding the time that he spent in the pro peloton, but nonetheless, the clouds seem to have cleared, and I think it's always nice to see a rider battling. Let's just say Frank Schleck is one of the most tested riders out there. He's delighted for him.
Yeah, it certainly looked like his career was kind of fading gradually, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was on his way to a fairly quiet retirement.
Oh, hello. Well, you talk about the blue group. Right now, they are imposing themselves, and Trek, why not? They've got Frank Schleck. Arredondo. How many times has he disappointed? Well, at least he can take some climbs, I guess, and he's a good man to have up towards the fore. Lampre getting busy and interested in pink and blue. Ulissi, Durasek, Koshevoy. They've got Jan Polanc, of course, further up the road, which gives them a bit of an excuse. And there you go. It's been a muddy old race today, and that is just cleaning the valve, by the way, on the bidon. The last thing you want is to squirt a bit of, well, farmyard juice there.
behind. It means that they've been able to just sit nice and easy behind the Astana squad. And I know that Movistar are also thinking today, not just of trying to take the win on the day with their team leader Valverde, but also of the overall classification in the UCI World Tour rankings. They're leading that at the moment, but only by a few points. I think it's just over 50 points. The fact that J-Rod, Burrito, Joaquin Rodriguez, guy with many names, is not...
No, that's one of the worst that he's had, actually. But anyway, yes, J-Rod is not here. Some of those, in fact, I believe that's a legend that you can basically read and inspire yourself. I'm not suggesting that they've got any chance of taking any of that in. Just look at the absolutely knocked right back, and we know why.
Yeah, gradient, and the likes of things that we see in the Giro d'Italia and there. The special gears, they really are at a crawling pace, and you'll notice it actually when some of the spectators probably run alongside the riders. They're actually having to walk, which is what they used to do next to me.
Enrico Barbin is just about to be caught. He was, well, it's going to have to be down to Nibali himself, and frankly, I think he needs a bit more assistance if he's going to make it all the way in the dry. He'd have preferred terrible weather conditions. I've seen Nibali function brilliantly, even in blizzard conditions. He's a great descender as well, but the advantage dissipates, to be honest. If he's got quicker men ahead of him, and he does, then he might well be in bother a little bit later on. This is turning into a very, very decent group. Lotto Jumbo, of course, have been pushing on with Jesik. There he is, number 203. His teammate was in the break, Van Vindem, has just been absorbed, and he's going to try and stay with 15-kilometre descent. Again, almost as technical as the, you can imagine going back down the other way, and here they come. Jesik, hoping into view, Slakter as well. Out to be a very, very favourite. Real
Doing in a group of 2, 3, or alone. You want to try and stay in that group of 6. That group behind whistling down very quickly indeed as well. Just 2 guys left riding on the front for Astana. I think also the man who was with Wellens and the other riders in between has been...
He's just slightly disengaged. Tom Jelter Slakter, sadly for him. And they'll just go over the crest in just a few moments' time. It does flatten out, albeit very slightly towards the point right now. Rights from our friend from Bora, but and clearly he is. If he's bringing it into here, look at the countdown down. That's almost it's an altitude. Not what you want to see.
2 kilometres at that gradient takes forever. I mean, it really is excruciating. I'm going to be on it for what, around about 8 minutes than that, but it is starting to split up this group behind. I'm surprised at that.
You take, I guess, an incline such as this at whatever tempo you can possibly manage. I don't think they're going to try and get an escape away. You never know. It is quite technical on this downhill. They've then got 15 kilometres.
It certainly looks like a little bit of chaos in the caravan of cars behind.
Well,
the
they may
race
well have
itself.
trapped some riders.
Chaos as well in the peloton. I mean, down to just 8 riders already at 50 k's to go. Astana there with 1 ride in front of Vincenzo Nibali. Esteban Chavez is the rider from Orica who's managed to get himself in there. Thibaut Pinot there as well. In fact, a 3rd rider from...
With the climbs that we've dealt with, there would have been some strugglers, and now they're going to have to pick their way over vehicles by the looks of things. So clearly, somewhere along the guided. Kwiatkowski just hits off. Look behind him. In fact, he's got a couple of motorcycles within the gap. Then comes Jesink a little bit further back. Tom Jelter Slakter is just making a recovery. It's a very brave push by these guys with 50.5 kilometres to go. Over the top of the riders, they will head down the mountain, and then of course the cars will come in back and into support. In fact, I'm just saying that. It looks like all of a sudden revealed from the trees, Astana are here, and ominously Vincenzo Nibali, who's in fighting mood.
Deep, try and get over this climb. Then he'll be able to just sort of recoup a little bit of energy on the descent and on that flat section afterwards. But I certainly wasn't expecting a group of this size to come over the Somano climb. It was much bigger a couple of years ago. Lanes 3 riders from Astana, including Vincenzo Nibali, also Esteban Chavez, Thibaut Pinot, Hessing and Slakter, who've just been caught, Danny Moreno, and finally Alejandro Valverde. Warren Barguil Giant Shimano, and then the rest of the group here behind, including there one of the Yates brothers and Sergio, and now Pozzovivo. Some big names being dropped here already.
Yeah, very much so. If you're up towards the 4, then you've done a terrific job, even at this point, quite frankly. So battle on. First chasing group listed at 10 seconds. You don't read too much into that because there are riders just about everywhere, and Micah suddenly finds himself he always looks reasonably fresh when he's going to finally impose himself. Down descent then off the big test of today. They've dealt with the Muro, and now it's reach out for to say to Valens, well, that didn't work. What on earth are we going to do now?
Well, they've put a lot of energy into this, so I guess they're going to have to try and push on, use their descending skill. It's quick. Whoa, it was the motorbike camera that I think they were shaking their heads at. It was very close indeed.
We get up to the 4, and I guess Kwiatkowski and Valens, Edix Quickstep and Lotto Soudal, their teams primary amongst those that want to get going from how they started the climb, and so those two support vehicles, two teams will want to get a car in the gap essentially. How many riders will they be prepared to accept as part of a group? Bear in mind we've got 15 kilometers of flat racing after post descent. They're on a little step at the moment. There's about 13 k's more to go, about 11 kilometers to go before they hit the 15 kilometer flat section, and a more beautiful part of the world you'd be hard pushed to find. These guys are pushing on at the moment, and it is for glory. Will they make it? Well, you're going to have to find out.
Seconds back to a group which contains Rui Costa, former world champion, current Portuguese champion, and Visconti of Movistar, the Italian rider. Behind them, another group with the likes of Maxime Bouet and Vasil Kirienka, and then at 1 minute and 45 from our duo at the front, we are being told there is a bunch. Don't know exactly who is there, but
could be Flowers.
Yeah.
38.6, in fact famous for flowers, this part of the world. They hold a flower festival, incidentally. Likewise, they do so in San Remo, which of course also forms part of one of the monuments, the Milan San Remo. So yeah, floral part of bicycle racing, as you know. At least the ceremony at the end, where Dan nips down and interviews our winners. Any thoughts as to whether it's going to come from this group?
I think it will do. I mean, you certainly can't discount the Wellens riders with an enormous pedigree. Kwiatkowski, you have to say, slightly more so than Wellens at this point in time. Winner of Amstel Gold, the World Championships last year as well. Wellens, though, winner 2 years in a row of the Eneco Tour. Everyone was away on the Queen stage in the rain, quite hilly there in the Ardennes region of Belgium. And they're strong on the flat as well as on the climbs, and that's going to be crucial for them as they come up to this 15-kilometre flat section to the last 2 climbs. But you know, if there was one less rider from Astana working on the front, I'd give them much more of a chance. But the fact that there's still Landa and Rosa, who are both in great form at the moment, still working, doing good tempo on the front, I think it's going to be difficult for the 2 out front now.
Right-hand men, I think you might say, from Etix Quickstep, sort of embedded within this group. In fact, it was Etix that really took on the main push, wasn't it?
Yeah, as soon as we came on air, a split in the field on the descent was revealed to us, and as you said, Carlton, it was like a Quickstep squad who'd been riding on the front and forced that breakaway. Yeah, Philippe Gilbert, I was going to say with Visconti, but that isn't Visconti from Moto. How far behind the group Gilbert and Tal are at the moment? Graham Watson, the back of the bike there.
It is. Motorcycle helmet, not even sure if it's legal. Is this going to be a lone attack? No, Kwiatkowski just gets it on his back wheel at last, he says. Some effort being put in by Valens, who he guided all the way down that descent, didn't he?
Yeah, Kwiatkowski took the impetus at the front for the long descent, which they've pretty much come to the end of now. 36 kilometres to go. The climb of Civiglio with 21.7 kilometres remaining.
As you can see, the shadows are getting much longer. These guys, well, it could be the ultimate shadow they cast on everybody, I guess, by the end of today. They're rolling well together at the moment, but we're still waiting and trying to get splits along the way. So still looking very, very lively. I want to see how Chavez goes.
Well, I can tell you he's got a teammate who has managed to latch onto the back of this group now. One of the Yates twins, around about 20, maybe even 25 riders.
Trofimov delivers today. I think he was actually somebody who was not even considered by those who set the odds in this kind of event. Fortunately, for the time being, their advantage is, well, actually it's holding reasonably steady as they push on.
Yeah, we haven't had any updates from the 36 seconds which we were being told a few minutes ago. Tom Dumoulin we haven't really seen much of today. I don't think that he's in the group that's on your screens here right now. Managed to latch onto the group, having been part of that kind of attack which contained Wellens and Kwiatkowski. Thibaut Pinot there as well.
It's been a tough day though for everybody. 30 kilometres left on what is for many their last race of the season.
Yeah, it is for most, I think. We have got a pretty good field coming up in that Abu Dhabi Tour.
Philippe Gilbert clearly is not happy that he appears to have missed what could turn out to be a major move. He knows it, and he's battling against the cars at the moment. There we are, Ethics Quickstep. They've got their riders further up the way.
We haven't quite seen him in the same sort of form as we did a few years ago. 168, I think, is the rider from Simon. So Simon Yates.
There you go. Well, to be honest, if you're going to be speaking about boring economics, then what a fantastic place to come and sort of at least give your mind something else to think about. I'm sure it's, you know, very useful and tasty if you go for the pasta. It's starting to look like a difficult task, and Philippe Gilbert, they've lent on him, the chasers, because they know this means an awful lot to him, this race. Meanwhile, out front, you've got two riders who now look like invigorated, but in sight of those who are chasing on, and it's a big push at the moment by Astana. They're looking after Nibali. Diego Rosa and Michael Landa also have Landa lead. Who knows what might develop, and here we are as we hook back. Simon Yates is with Chavez from Orica Green Edge, just behind the Diamond Trio that you're looking at from Astana. Landa has been doing a lot of work, likewise his teammate Diego Rosa, and it's all for Vincenzo Nibali. This is playing into Nibali's hands at the moment. He's an angry man, Nibali. Frankly, on occasion, whenever he does suffer stress, it works very well for him. He's able to use his disquiet Tour de France run into Sheffield, of course, when he was being criticised by his own team. So the climbs are beckoning, and the next is close at hand.
Before Kwiatkowski and Wellens will hit the penultimate climb of the day, the Civiglio. This is where we are expecting the big fireworks in this edition. Consider they will have 225 kilometres in the legs by the time they get to this point. This is where we're expecting to see them make their move. They're going to have a hand as they hit this climb
towards the side. It's often a precursor to an attack, but right now it's Kwiatkowski who's gone off by himself. Wellens has decided that he's going to embed himself just a little bit, if the cameras have missed that. But look at the wrestling that's going on behind. It looks like Wellens is there and going backwards. He is indeed, there you are, graphically declared as the man who's out front. Here comes Nibali, Chavez on his wheel, and likewise a whole raft. It's going to be from this group that our winner comes today.
Good form over the last couple of weeks. Simon Yates just starting to suffer as well. Gap opening up between he and Barguil, and then from the Barguil up to the that he's on fantastic form himself. He won a one-day race just a few days ago in front of some very good riders indeed. Vincenzo Nibali starting to puff a little bit behind. How good is he feeling? You have to say that he must be feeling strong. He must be feeling confident. Entire day effectively as he has done. Surely only a matter of time before he makes his move.
Bardet going backwards as well, and when you see that happening, you realise it's been a long season, and you also realise just how punishing the pace is out front that's being set at the moment. So up there as well. This is all great news for those of you who like to see a little bit of change in the ranks up front, but Chavez, of course, no. Valverde's always struggled when it's come to this one, to be honest, but he's had great run of form at the top of the season, and I suspect
Well, he's going. It looks like he's now chosen this moment to try and make his move, and the only man who can respond is Esteban Chavez, the youngster from Colombia, from Orica Green Edge. He doesn't want to push on too long if he's not on his own, but that means that two more riders are coming up from behind. Danny Moreno from Katusha, who would dearly love to win this race today in the absence of his teammate Joaquin Rodriguez, Thibaut Pinot.
Chavez looks fantastic. He's sprightly. He's the biggest smiler out there, as I'm sure you know. And look at everyone looking around. Just Thibaut Pinot, Nibali, clearly was suffering at that moment, and maybe it's going to be left to others who've had some sparkling results of late.
It's time for him to make a surprise move. That's exactly what he's done. Sergio Henao is the rider there from Team Sky, trying to make his way up to the Astana rider, and the route.
They are starting to look at each other. I don't know whether Nibali's going to regather himself, but he's clearly not feeling comfortable. Sends out two elbows. I mean, I really do want you to take over. There's nobody here for that, I'm afraid, but 14% maximum through the hairpins. That's where you get your steepest section. Kilometres to go, so they've still got 2Ks remaining before they start to head down and then take on our final test today.
Well, here comes Brambilla then from Ethics Quickstep. They're having a pretty good day. They've been a part of that counter-attack which we saw as soon as our programme started today. So it's the slightly lower end riders of this race select group who are showing their faces now and try and determine when they're going to make their move. Beginning to get very cagey here at the moment.
It is starting to get cagey at the moment. Out of the saddle, Chavez looks very sprightly and sort of staying in touch whenever questions are asked of the diminutive Colombian who races for Orica Green Edge. Very clubby, but it's Rosa at the moment. What an amazing 7 days he will have had if he delivers this.
Of a team almost, he'd be the team. He's a very of his time working for others, and that's always going to be the case if your teammates with the likes of Aru and Vincenzo Nibali. Would have been nice to see him as an almost protected rider.
Further down the line, well, we've seen plenty suffering down there, and Sergio now, it's his turn right now up. Powell's looked a bit second-hand not that long ago, and Nibali pushes on.
Like he has quite got the strength to be able to get rid of the riders who are still left on our screens right now, and the important one to get rid of really is Alejandro Valverde. He's the man who can finish off. Other climbers, other riders who are capable of Grand Tour podiums don't generally have. It'd be a big risk if you took that man to the finish line. It's incredible that he's here at all, really.
Rosa. And it's Valverde that just comes up to the fore, and he wanted to have a good look at Nibali. Just so Pinot goes on the attack, drifts over, and this is serious. Away he goes up by the barriers, and it's Rosa that responds. Tree line here, but Pinot is having a proper roll of the dice. Chavez not tempted this time by. There is a redemption for those who are not involved. Is a
well, once again the big favourites behind now starting to look at each other. How much has Vincenzo Nibali got left in the tank? He can now start to follow the likes of Valverde, the likes of Danny Moreno. Only just over 1 kilometre now before they peak this climb. 16.6 is where they. Another descent. They'll be back up, well, they'll be into Como and then back up on the final loop of the day and the final climb.
And sometimes going on the attack is part of that bluff. Pinot tries to bridge over to them and does with Rosa, who now goes on a. Now, this is real find out time to see who's left, and quite frankly, it may well be a solo by Rosa, who just had a fantastic run, didn't he, in the Milan.
Paying dividends here today, and it does certainly look like Astana are going to have to make the most of the fact that they're the only team here now with more than one rider in this group.
It's fascinating to see how this is panning out. This is Nieve tagged onto the back of this group, who looked so strong just a moment ago. And Chavez playing a widely game. In fact, he didn't believe that break would go for it. Nibali goes, and this is full on right now against the wall. Oh, trying to hide himself. He's done this so many times before, and it's Pinot that's wrestling with him. And Nibali now, he's got a big long descent as soon as he goes over the crest of this, and he'll be there in 1K's time. This is the kick that he suddenly made. Had a look. Valverde couldn't respond, and Nibali just goes this line, round this curve, almost on the white line, which is to warn traffic they're getting almost with the possibility of losing a wing mirror. That's how close he was to the wall, and he hugs it still, and Pino stays with him just for now. It's Chavez that's trying to come over. That little grouping also containing Valverde, and now what looked like pain looks like determination on the face of Nibali. He's got to get to the top. He'll be there in about 800 metres time, then he could descend and take on the final test today. He had to go long. He could not bring Valverde all the way.
Monument is not something that you come even close to many times in your career. In fact, you could be a million miles away from it if it was my career. But you don't want to see it slip up the road on the descent, and that's going to be, as I said, very frustrating for Thibaut Pinot. They need to get their act together as soon as they possibly can. But they've also got to contend with Rossa, who's going to get in the way as much as he possibly can without aggravating them too much.
Well, I wonder whether the likes of Valverde are just thinking about the team classification. 25 seconds. Nibali has got a cushion. Now he's got to almost sit on that when he goes up this next incline. It maxes at 10%, by the way, and suddenly alarm bells going off. It's Moreno that's chasing on, and Nibali looks like he's starting to get a little bit emotional here. He's realizing that this could be a monument that he adds to his significant list. What a great Palmares it is. 9.5 kilometers to go. Get your head down and get on with it. He knows that. He's an amazing battler, and that descent was straight out of the textbook of what you've got to do when a situation presents itself to you. And Valverde is not to be drawn into this pursuit at the moment with 9.2 kilometers to go. Everyone else is looking at each other. They took the corner very, very badly, a final one, as they got onto the flat section. And I don't know whether they think that Nibali's going to cook himself out there, but Moreno it is that sets off after him, and maybe he's going to be brave enough to take on the incline. Rosa's not going to do anything. He's already got himself a win so far this year. A little bit of transfer of energy coming from Valverde, who offers up a smile and says, no, we're going to be team champions as far as the UCI ranking is concerned. That's good enough for me, mate. Don't expect any hard work. This man's going to impose himself as best as he can. Hard work, he's used to it. Bad conditions he would have liked. Right now he's taken what he can get, and it may well be he takes a monument here.
Well, the group behind Nibali is starting to swell once again, which indicates that the chase hasn't been extremely hard. 30 seconds the latest gap we're getting over race radio. It is increasing. He's got 400 metres now, Nibali, until he reaches that final test of the day. 2.7 kilometres is the length of this final climb. Average gradient of 7.2%, but with that kind of cushion and that kind of pedigree, it's hard to see this man being caught.
I think pedigree is the word, and this man is a purebred battler, and he is in, just the latest skirmish, I guess you might say, of what has been an illustrious career. Plenty more of it still to come. He was wounded after his expulsion from La Vuelta, and just look at the numbers starting to swell behind. I believe that's Wellens that's also got himself back in right now.
Galopin.
And beg your pardon, it is. And there is Valverde. He's not interested in engaging in the pursuit, and suddenly taking on the climb goes Nibali. They're all looking at each other still. Chavez wondering whether he can put enough into this and still bring himself some sort of result. Goodness me, they still fight on, but it's not an effective fight at all, is it not? And now it is that's joined the fun. And is this fun, though? That's the question. 7.5 kilometres to go, 41 seconds. Nibali, I believe, has done this. This climb is not going to sap his strength and not his determination. You should see the crowd at the finish line. Lots and lots of very pensive faces. They are going to be roaring their hearts out, to be honest, one way or another, I guess you might say. Once he takes the peak, and it comes with 5.3 to go, so he's got just over 2 Ks remaining before he can sail this one home. If he has an advantage of 41 seconds, there's no way they're going to catch him on the descent.
Well, here goes Chavez, but you have to say 41 seconds, nigh on impossible to match or to go across to Vincenzo Nibali, and Diego Rossa doing an incredible job of just neutralising anything that's coming from behind. Nieva tries to go on the right-hand side of the road. He's quickly followed by Thibaut Pinot, but again, Rossa just straight onto the back of these riders. He's on an incredible day as well, Diego Rossa, today. 40 seconds then, the gap between Vincenzo Nibali and the group of favourites who trail him. We've got the likes of Robert Hessink there just behind, probably with Wout Poels, the Dutch rider from Team Sky. But it's all about this man today, Vincenzo Nibali. winner of the Italian Championships for the second year in succession, winner just last week of another couple of races. Looks like he's going to take this one as well.
Well, who's going to be nearest man to him? Thibaut Pinot wants it to be him, and maybe a chance. If something goes wrong, you can have a technical at any point, and Pinot wants to be in the house. Well, right now it's going to be a lonely place, almost a Hermitage for this man. Takes this left-hander right now, and look at the faces of the fans. They can't believe what they're seeing. They're loving it. And those at the line couldn't be less vocal, quite frankly. Our commentary position is filled with hundreds and hundreds of faces, and they are stony-faced and staring. Every time they see somebody engaging in a chase, they start to worry, they start to stress on behalf of Nibali. It was great disappointment for him when he got thrown off the welter for auto assistance, holding onto a car to you and me. Well, right now he's holding almost a monument in his grasp. They've been thin on the ground as far as he's concerned within his career, and he cannot wait to take one here. 6.9 corners, amazingly. It's a golden thread he sews through this green tapestry, I guess you might say, of these mountainsides. They've kept a lot of the greenery through the summer in this part of the world. It was a wet summer, I might add, but Nibali at the moment is not thinking about that, but then he thinks about that curve. He almost put a hexagon right in the middle of it, checked up, double checked, because there was a rough surface which Moreno's going to hit right now. In he comes, much slower, right, 14 seconds, that's likely to be 20 at the bottom, the way that they are taking these curves. Nibali's gone all in, he's now gone aero, and you can see Moreno not as happy at all, not as aero certainly.
Well, look at the confidence of Vincenzo Nibali to take those kinds of risks here with a 14-second gap. You can see the glistening road. There are still some wet patches here from the rain that we've been seeing earlier on this morning, and indeed over the last week on the run-up to this race, but that's certainly not holding this man up at all. He's taking those corners, well, at a pace that I am dreading at the moment.
Well, we're all dreading. We're hoping that Nibali goes through this. First time I've not seen him pedal through a flattish corner, and maybe he knows the route in absolutely like the back of his hand, and why wouldn't you? There's a nasty corner at 650 metres to go, which introduces you to the straight that leads to the finish. Oh, goodness me, double check and again, and sends himself way out, almost takes out a van. Goodness me, Nibali is taking every single risk it is possible to take. He wants a monument, Dan, and right now it looks like he's going to get it.
Well, he would be absolutely over the moon if he manages to win this monument here today. It's been a horrible season for Vincenzo Nibali for all sorts of reasons. 4th overall at the Tour de France. He has won the Italian national champion, but this effectively would save his season if he managed to take this victory, and it does look odds on that he's going to do that now. Well,
he just disappeared as Moreno was dealing with that van. Nibali was just disappearing around the corner, and that must have been a heartbreak for Moreno. The first piece of straight road where he can measure himself against the great man. And Nibali takes another lazy right-hander, and the camera hooks back to try and pick up Moreno. I believe the next man you'll see will be Valverde, and maybe not that far behind either. Here's that corner now for Moreno. Also goes wide, but he's not got the same cadence, he's not got the same attacking line, and it's total attack as far as Nibali is concerned. Hangs a knee out, almost gets a graze from the wall that he tries to get as close to as he possibly can. Back into an aero position with 2.9 to go. Can anyone deny this man? Well, I think now it's going to come down to bad luck. If that's the only thing I can see that's going to catch him. The distance appears to be extending.
Well, we're hearing 11 seconds, but I can't imagine it's come down below 14 that it was as they crested that very final climb. So with 2.5 Ks to go, our Italian champion here riding that specialised bike. He's got rid of all his water bottles, he's used his energy wisely, he's used his skills wisely as well, you have to say, on this race today, and it doesn't look like this man's going to be able to bring him back. Danny Moreno 12 seconds we're being told, Thibaut Pinot, the Frenchman from FDJ, a further 14 back, then we've got Valverde with Diego Rosa behind that.
There we are, and that's Rosa having done a terrific team player's job, and there of course Valverde, it looks like he's given up the chase. It's Pinot who's going to be third man home if it stays like this. Some big cuts in the road as you can see, and Nibali, look at the crowd, they raise their arms, they cheer, they shout, they scream, and this man is going to be screaming for glory, and not at not least a modicum of pain as well. He's going to take a final left-hander with 650 metres to go. Moreno shakes his head. That's him saying second place it's going to have to be for me today. He's coming down towards the waterside, as you can see, and this is a man in his absolute pomp, and it has extended. We look back down this highway section, as you can see, and it's all about Nibali. He can start designing his celebrations right now. 200 metres to go, that's all. He's taken the final curve. He's taken a victory. It's been a long wait for this man, and once again, when questions have been asked of him, he has responded in the most magnificent fashion. Nibali has taken Il Lombardia. Wow, what a win that was. We look back and we wait for the also rounds, and it's no disrespect for them. Here comes Moreno right now. Brave ride by him. Pinot likewise is going to finish in third place today, and we'll see who manages to come home in fourth. It may well be Valverde, looking for points for the team classification on the World Tour. But goodness me, you have seen one heck of a piece of individual endeavour today, and it's been about a certain man called Vincenzo. Well, there we are, and why not? Rosa goes out, maybe get mugged at the line by Valverde, who's a quick finisher, tries to come round the outside, and indeed Valverde, I think, just nicks it at the line. What a day we have had today, and what a reception for this man. Nibali is there, and he smiles, and indeed pale of pallor, but he's looking for his teammates. He wants to find Rosa and offer up his thanks, and we offer up our congratulations to a great rider. Embarrassed by this season, I might add, Nibali, but what a way to retrieve it at the very last. Well, bad but not broken, Nibali, this season, and he takes this one. Nibali ahead of Moreno. Thibaut Pinot making up the day's podium. Lombardia, you have to love it. Well, Dan Lloyd's just heading down, and he's going to get an interview as soon as he possibly can with Vincenzo Nibali. Confirmation then of our stage results. Nibali takes it ahead of Moreno. Thibaut Pinot in third place ahead of Valverde. Diego Rosa making up the top five. Niev Pascai leading on the rest ahead of Galopin. Goodness me. What a magnificent way to end what for many is the final race of the season.
This is a very strong performance from you and also from the team Astana today.
Oggi è stata veramente una giornata fantastica, tutta la squadra ha lavorato dai primi chilometri.
My squad helped me, of course, my team brilliantly. For every single kilometre of this race they worked hard.
Niente, in salita ho provato 2 volte, però ho visto che era molto difficile perché
you have to take your chances, make your jumps when you can,
e allora
that's what he did.
Ho detto tra me e me che dovevo provare qualcosa di diverso, dovevo sorprendere.
Well, to finish the end of a course such as this as a winner,
ho fatto una grande
take great pride in it.
Oggi abbiamo avuto una squadra veramente
But of course,
da
my thanks are for my team.
Da Agnoli che ha tirato la prima parte della corsa,
the guy who, the guys who prepared the course, everything.
Magari oggi non era semplice, però ci siamo veramente presi tutta la gara sulle spalle, abbiamo fatto un grande lavoro.
He just had to keep on fighting when he possibly could, and that's exactly what he did. He's thanked everybody out there.
Grazie.
And we thank him. Well, there we are. It was kind of a PR message, was it not? Here's your World Tour ranking. Alejandro Valverde adds a few more points, as you can see. Joaquin Rodriguez, who did not attend due to a knee injury, in second place. Nairo Quintana, Alexander Kristoff and Fabio Aru, your top 5 UCI.
Edizione 109 del Lombardia. In terza posizione si è classificato un portacolori di FDJ, Thibaut Pinot.
Brave effort by Thibaut Pinot. He's a great guy, actually, and also, of course, hugely favoured as a superstar amongst French cycling fans. He's had glory himself. Third place today could well have been a winner. not quite to be, but looks happy enough with it, as you can see. Well, as is the case with all monuments, we have a full podium to deal with. Next up, it will be, of course,
In seconda posizione sul traguardo di Como si è classificato un portacolori del team Katyusha, Daniel Moreno.
This is a man who needs a contract next year. He's a great battler, often sacrifices himself for others, notably, of course, Perito Rodriguez. And today, as he crossed the line, offering himself a little grimace, knowing what might have been. Well, to win a race like this, you have to be extraordinarily good. You also have to have a great team around you. And what Moreno had to do on his own, Nibali did with support. You know the name of our winner. What a fantastic performance it has been. He's won all the Grand Tours, and now he's won a monument. Listen to that roar. In Lombardia, the 109th running of it, as a champion, and a worthy one at that. A difficult season for Nibali, and this, frankly, will have made amends. On the podium with his daughter, family man, also a battler, and he had to fight hard for that.
Portacolori di Sala Pro Team, il campione d'Italia e la 68esima vittoria italiana nel Lombardia. L'applauso per Vincenzo Nibali!
Well, the crowd couldn't be happier. The roar when he came onto that start-finish straight was really something to be heard. Well, I hope our effects Mike's picked it up.
In omaggio a Vincenzo Nibali,
A worthy
la
winner,
vostra attenzione per
a great
l'inno
guy.
nazionale d'Italia.